This episode is brought to you by bewatersmart.info. It may be fall, but it's still important to be water smart. Make sure your irrigation is off or adjusted for cooler, wetter weather. And did you know fall is a great time to plant your water-wise and drought-tolerant California natives? Planting now gets them established before the heat of the summer arrives. For a list of plants and more water-saving tips and tricks, visit bewatersmart.info.
Look at that plant. I want you to know that everything was grown in my garden. Don't touch that plant!
Is it poisonous?
She'll become part of the plant.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flower Power Garden Hour. I'm your host, Marlene.
And I'm your co-host, Bruce.
And this episode, we're going to talk about your holiday plants and how to take care of them after the holidays.
Ooh, that sounds exciting.
Well, we're trying to prevent as many of these plants going into your compost pile or landfill as possible, but
Yeah, it is a problem with Christmas and holiday plants.
yes. So, and the funny thing is I always say, for like people who pass, it's best to buy them cut flowers because the pressure they have on growing a potted plant that's
Yes.
associated with their loved one passing, it's pretty high. So I get a lot of questions when people are like, I have to keep this plant alive because it's in memory of my so-and-so. And I feel like people somewhat have that for their holiday plants is, I was gifted this at the holidays and I have to keep
Right.
this going.
And then there are people like you and me who just hate to throw out plants. It's like it just feels wrong.
Well, I mean, we should be able to grow plants. And it's more of a
True.
competition. It's more of a challenge. Like we should be able to grow this.
But there are some plants which might be discussed today that I will recommend tossing, and
I know.
perhaps you will too.
So with that, let's get started. And I'm assuming you probably have on your list of what to start with is the most like prolific holiday plant is the poinsettia.
Is the point. And
Or-
the funny thing is, when I worked way back when, 150 years ago at Planting Fields Arboretum, they had a major poinsettia display every year. And it wasn't until years later that I learned it was poinsettia.
And it's funny because I still say poinsettia, but then sometimes I'll just say poinsettia.
Yeah, it's just, that's what the people in the industry call it, which is funny.
Yeah, poinsettia, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So what is the correct Latin name? What is its botanic name?
It's a euphorbia pulcherrima.
Okay, you pronounce it pulcherrima. That's good. Yes. It is a euphorbia. And most of the time you see the euphorbias are succulents, but there are tropical euphorbias because it's a very widespread family throughout. And it is from generally areas of Mexico and South America. And
And along with all euphorbias, what do they have in common with, let's just say, the euphorbias that we grow in our succulent greenhouse?
what do they have in common?
Yeah, why are they euphorbias? They don't look anything like a euphorbia to me.
Oh, are we going to talk about their flower morphology?
Well, what the heck?
Go for it then.
Well, there's two things they have in common. One is they have that milky white sap, which
Okay,
is an
yeah.
irritant,
Mm-hmm.
and their flowers are actually bracts. Oh, well, the poinsettia flowers are what we call the flower is actually a leaf bract. The flower is the tiny little yellowish button in the middle of the leaf bracts.
Yeah. So, well, you don't really see that in the desert plants because they don't form, leaves. They actually have stipular spines, which are the remnants of leaves. But yes, going back to the latex. So the latex is a sort of a across the board euphorbia, the white milky latex, which you said is an irritant, but it could be more than that, correct?
Well, yes. I mean, I will say, as a former eye doctor in my former life, I've had patients every so often will come in during the holidays and they get poinsettia sap in their eyes and they are miserable. It's actually toxic. It's not going to cause blindness, but it causes intense discomfort. It's a very, I guess we could say, somewhat toxic sap, and that varies from species to species, I'm sure, although I am by no means an expert.
So I think there's always been are euphorbias toxic? And you read, no, they're not toxic. So euphorbias, for the most part, I'm just going to say across the board, yes, they are toxic. It's not like you're going to eat it, you're going to die. But having had sap in my eye from various euphorbias, I can tell you I've experienced where I couldn't wear my contacts for a full month. My eyes would just burn. Recently, I got the sap of the second most toxic euphorbia in my eye, and I had to rinse my eye for several hours because it could blister. And
blisters in the cornea are one of those things you don't want.
no, I can imagine. And I've had blisters on me from other euphorbia. So it's just caustic, I guess is the word, is caustic. So if you eat it, you're not going to die. But more people could be sensitive to it than others. So you definitely don't want to cut the euphorbia, take the sap and rub it in your eye. You definitely don't want to have your cat or your dog or your child eat the euphorbia leaves. If they do, are they going to die? No. I mean,
they'll just be unhappy and miserable and sick and maybe throw up.
Yeah, and they have digestive issues. So in that regards, it's not toxic like, oh my God, it's going to kill you. And then you were mentioning that what we think of are the flowers are not flowers at all.
No, they're actually little modified leaves.
Or big modified leaves.
Or big modified leaves. Well, yes. I know we're talking poinsettias, but I'm thinking the crown of thorns plant, which has those little flowers.
Yeah. So, okay. So people get the poinsettias or poinsettias and they have them inside for the holidays. And how do they care for them during the holidays? What would you suggest?
Well, they take the infamous bright indirect light. But I think most important and frankly, you can keep them in any part of your house if you don't really care about saving them. But most important is they don't like cold drafts. Mm-hmm. They don't like being waterlogged. Mm-hmm. And I think those are one of the two things that really, and they don't like dry drafts either. But I mean, those are the things that really get for them. And people keep them and say you're growing them in the Northeast where it's cold. And you put them near your door, and then every time you open the door, those 15-degree drafts come in. It's not going to like that.
No.
And they're actually I would say they're not succulent, but they are plants that tolerate dryness.
Yeah.
So a good way to kill them is to overwater them.
Yeah. So if you get a plant, almost always it's going to make it through the holidays. Almost always. Right. You'd probably have to do pretty extreme growing for it to die because there are a few things that I think they grow in pure peat, and pure peat holds a lot of moisture. And what people do is they water it, and then they're in those metallic sleeves. And if they don't drain that, it's in standing water, and that's just going to rot it out. But even then, it's going to last through the holidays, most likely.
Yeah.
So if people want to keep it after the holidays, I recommend just getting it out of that soil 100%. As you mentioned, it's somewhat succulent. It grows on hillsides in Mexico where it's faster draining. So I recommend most people who are growing most houseplants that are even remotely on the succulent side, put it in a succulent mixture, something with pumice, so it has good drainage. So get it out of that soil is number one. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And the only thing I would say on that is, of course, that also depends on how long you want to keep it after the holidays, too.
Let's say forever.
Are we talking you want to keep it for the next year?
Sure.
Okay. Well, then absolutely get it out of that cruddy, spongy soil that they come in.
Yeah. And then keep it inside in a sunny light. They do not like temperatures below 50. And that's a big problem. And that's almost going to prevent you from, you can't put it in the ground in our zone.
Right.
If you put it in the ground, even if it's in a protected spot, 50 is that's not cold at all.
No.
I mean,
and it will drop its leaves if it gets too cold.
Yeah. I've seen ones growing in the ground up against a house in San Jose. And they do get big. I mean, in their natural setting, they could get, 8-10 feet tall. They're very leggy. Not the most beautiful plant.
Right.
So,
You know,
but in year round, like after the holidays, keeping it inside, it's if you were to grow it as a houseplant, it's just going to get very leggy because it still needs more light than what inside could offer you.
right. They and we'll get to this a little bit. They need a lot of pinching to get those plants as pretty as they are for Christmas in the nurseries.
Yes. And then, of course, the ultimate thing is, do you want to get it red again? And if you want it to be red again, it needs to be in 12 to 14 hours of complete darkness for how many weeks?
From October, generally like the first week in October until early November, although some people say 2 to 3 weeks, but back east in the botanical garden, we used to just keep them in that natural darkness until they bloomed.
Yeah, or bloomed or the leaves turned red, you mean? Or,
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, okay.
For future reference, when we say blooming on poinsettias, we really mean to the leaves turn red.
Well, I needed that correction. Okay. So yeah, they need complete darkness for a lot. Most people, if they grow them inside, it's not going to get that. I think, are we hitting that? When does it get dark? About 5 o'clock, and then it gets dark about 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Typically,
so
you want it when you're growing them in the greenhouse. You want to, if you could do it from 5 at night till 8 in the morning, but that's not realistic.
No.
If you're growing them, let's just say in a greenhouse.
Yeah.
We did not do artificial covering of them at all. We just used the natural winter darkness, and because it was on an old estate, there were no street lights to influence to prevent them from blooming.
Because even that could mess it up. You could be like, well, wait a minute, my greenhouse lights are off. But if there's like a porch light or something on, that could even mess it up.
I think the brights of a car driving by could possibly do it.
No, I mean, I've heard that where it's someone opening the door to the greenhouse and allowing some ambient light could even mess it up. But so, I would say poinsettia is one of those that generally ends up in the compost or in the garbage because it requires a lot of work afterwards, and it's really never going to live up to its former beauty unless you go to a lot of steps for it.
Right. And I will say that when they arrive from the growers, there's a company called Eki, who was the originator of a lot of the ones we see today. And I think they're still in business.
They are.
And they'll send little sprigs that are around 3 to 4 inches tall. I think they came in late summer, but I don't remember. And you let them grow, and then you pinch them, and then you let them grow a little more, and then you pinch them. Then you take your final pinching. I don't know when. So it's like with chrysanthemums. There's this constant care and pinching, and then the lighting issue. Mm-hmm. I would say I don't like throwing out plants, but I would say this is one plant that it's really just not meant to be anything but a temporary plant.
Yeah. Put it in your compost bin, maybe. I mean, I got a peach one last year, and I put it in the conservatory at work with the idea of, I'm going to make it color up. But guess what? Here we are in 2 weeks from Christmas, and I forgot to do that. So it's just this green plant.
And I went about 3 years ago. I went to the old arboretum where I used to work, and they had their display, and they had orange ones and marbled ones and amazing colors. And I got all excited, and I went to Marlene and I said, "Oh, here's the source. We can get all these great plants." And then we realized we're not going to be able to get them to flower because there's just no way we're going to be able to give it that uninterrupted darkness. It's not going to happen.
No. And I hate to say it, but I would rather put effort into other plants than them. And the problem with them is they're so associated with Christmas too.
Right.
That, you sort of have to step back and look at them. But I'd rather put effort into a lot of other plants than them. So if you have one, you want to keep it growing, that's it. Switch it out in soil. Just be aware to get it to color up. You have to do some steps. It may get white flies, which are problematic. But
and just remember, there's no margin of error.
Correct.
One mistake and you lost the year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to something a little more forgiving.
Right.
Let's talk about cyclamens.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about cyclamens.
Okay. So they are a tuberous. Now, I actually always thought they were a corm, not a tuber.
Yeah, I'm no expert in that.
I thought they were corm, but everything I'm reading is like tuberous. But sometimes tubers could be used as a generic form of just anything that is bulbous. But anyways, it is a geophyte, meaning it has an underground storage structure where the leaves and the foliage will germinate originate from. So it goes dormant. And they are from more the Mediterranean zone,
Yes,
northern
yes.
Africa, which you don't find too many true Mediterranean native plants that we grow.
Which is funny considering we have a Mediterranean
I
climate.
know, but looking for like in our true Mediterranean garden, it is actually tough finding plants from the true Mediterranean region, and this is one of them. So these are sold as outdoor color plants, but a lot of people do bring them inside for the holidays. Right. And unlike pansies, which you're like, oh, that's a winter fall outdoor bedding plant, cyclamens sort of have this more of a holiday sort of connotation to them.
Right.
So we're throwing that in.
But if you go to the local, at least in our zone 9B, I think we are now, if you go to the local garden centers, you start to see them, I'm going to say late summer, because people do use them as winter bedding plants here.
But a lot of times people get them as gifts as well and grow them inside because they are so striking and dramatic and colorful.
Right. And on the East Coast, they are, of course, house plants, and they're winter blooming house plants. And in the middle of winter, they're very nice to have around.
Yeah, because you probably don't have much color going on.
Outdoors, I used to live right by the water, like on Long Island Sound, maybe a half a mile away.
Wow.
And down by the water, sometimes in January, sometimes pansies were blooming, usually not. And I was about a half a mile up, a little higher, maybe 80 feet higher, but I could not grow pansies, but down by the water you could. So not a lot growing unless you're right on the water.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know in case I ever move there. So they are tuberous. The interesting thing and the problematic thing is they are summer dormant.
Right.
And they don't like to be watered in the summer. So if people get them and they plant them in their garden, they often rot out because people water them through the summer because you're watering your summer garden.
Right. I think that cyclamen and frankly, a lot of those summer dormant plants are really best grown in this area devoted just for things that you just want to let go bone dry in the summer. Or maybe an area without irrigation.
So grow them with your South African bulbs if you have them, or grow them. I mean, do I say it? Put them in where your aloes are at and your cacti are at.
Why not?
Because in the winter they take full sun, and that's when they're getting the rainwater. And then in the summer they're dormant, so they don't care about the sun and they're not getting water.
Right.
So, I mean, that works. And, I've seen them where a little irrigation, they survive, but for the most part, they do rot out if they get that winter or the summer water.
Now, here's something to know, though, that there are winter hardy, or should I say cold hardy cyclamen, cyclamen coum and heredifolium, and I think some others, I can't remember the names. And they are grown in cold climates as a very late fall or very, very early spring and sometimes winter flowering plant, which of course is great if you live in a zone where, it hovers around 35 to 40 during the day. And those can be grown they can tolerate a lot of sun irrigation because it rains 4 inches every month, almost like clockwork in the Northeast and the East Coast. So those can be grown outdoors. You never see them as holiday gifts. The flowers are smaller. They're mostly variations of lavender, white, or purple, but they're cyclamens.
Yeah.
And they are same flower design.
I mean, some of the cyclamens are, and you see them in some of the potted ones, it's sort of the leaf forms are the amazing part, is because the markings on the leaves are variable, and some of the flowers are smaller and some of the flowers are actually fragrant.
Yes, in fact, the old cyclamen of many, many moons ago was pretty much considered a fragrant plant, and the smell was great.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I go to the nurseries, I smell them, and it's there, but either I'm losing my sense of smell or they're not breeding them to maintain the smell.
some of them aren't. So it's one of those that I think would be fun to grow as more of a collection and trying to get more of them. I just never gotten around to it.
It's very hard to find them other than, you find them in the nurseries, but those are the hybrids. I've actually sent away for seeds from them. Very hard to grow. When you're doing well, they take 2 years to bloom. I got my first bloom after 3 years.
Wow.
And, so it's a lot of patience, but you can get from specialty nurseries all the little species ones.
Yeah, I would say so. If someone bought them for the holidays or got a gift as a holiday, yes, you could grow them inside through the holidays. Then you're going to want to move it outside, leave it in its pot, let it do its thing. And then as we start getting to summer, as you notice the leaves fall off, the flowers, let it go dormant. Either keep it in a pot, move it into a pot with better drainage than probably the peat moss it's been in. You could put it in the ground in a non-summer irrigated area or keep it in a pot, and then it will just break its dormancy in the fall, and then you would just resume its watering and put it in full sun, and that's it, really.
Yeah, I mean, I will also say that the ones that I grew from seed, when you're growing things from seed, it's a little more difficult going into that winter dormancy because those bulbs are really teeny the first year, and it might actually desiccate completely. But I let them. I'm sorry, summer dormancy. But I give them a little water. It doesn't seem to hurt them. They're not going to die if you give them occasional water in the summer.
No, because I've seen them where they actually do get summer irrigation. I think if the drainage is well and good, it might allow them to continue living. So there's always exceptions. You're always like, wait a minute, how is that one growing? It's getting summer irrigation, but
the main thing is it's actually a plant that you can get to grow long term. You can actually have it for many years. And in our climate, it's a great plant because you bring it indoors, you enjoy it in the winter, you leave it outdoors in the winter, you forget about it in the summer.
Yeah.
What could be better than that?
And it's really pretty. Like you said, it comes in a variety of colors. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to one that is a little bit more, I'm going to say problematic, but worthy of keeping. And that is the Christmas cactus.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So I remember writing an article for the SAC Beat years ago on it. And as I was writing, I'm like, oh, I know all about this. And as I started doing research, I went, oh. Because there's your Thanksgiving cactus, your Christmas cactus, your Easter cactus.
That's Easter cactus. And some people have crossed them to get, a multi out of the year.
Hanukkah?
When everyone's the bloom cactus. Not a Hanukkah. I don't know. A Kwanzaa cactus. That sounds better.
Is when you cross them. Yeah. So I knew it growing up as the zygo cactus. Right? Did you remember that?
That's what I knew.
Yeah, that's what I knew. But somewhere along the lines, they changed the genus to Schlumbergera.
The goal of botanists is to make the name much more hardy to pronounce.
Exactly.
Hard to pronounce.
Exactly. But just keep in mind, it is an epiphytic cacti from Brazil, meaning it is a true cacti. It doesn't grow in the desert. It grows up in the canopies of the trees in the tropics.
Right.
And with that, there are certain growing conditions that it needs moisture, but its roots need a lot of aeration. Because if you think of it growing up in the canopies of the trees, it's getting the constant, maybe tropical rains, but it's not growing in the soil. So the substrate it's growing in is sort of this just heavy duff material, organic debris in it. So it's getting
and very well draining.
And very well drained. So you want to mimic that. And of course, when you get one, what kind of soil is it growing in?
Well, again, they have to remember that this is a business. So they're going to put these plants in the cheapest soil they can get to get them to survive or to thrive, to look good so that they come to you in bloom. And they don't care after they go out. That's not their problem.
No, it's not. No.
So, but yeah, they come in that horrible spongy soil.
Yeah. Which is not what they're growing into the wild. So over time, so for a short amount of time, yes, they could grow in that. But they will die. So the first thing, of course, when you get one, even I would say like poinsettias, if you want to keep it, you can let it through the holidays, keep going in that soil, even cyclamen. But I would almost say for Christmas cactus, get it out of that soil as fast as you can.
Well, I have a problem with that, though, which is that Christmas cactus are very prone to dropping their flowers. Like if you move them like from outdoors to indoors, you risk the flowers dropping. Won't repotting them encourage flower drop?
Yeah, but I guess I'm thinking of the long-term health of the plant. Like I would say just be very then careful of the watering.
How about we enjoy them? Because those flowers don't last that long.
They don't.
Maybe enjoy them for 2 weeks, then repot. Can we come to that as a compromise?
We could come to that as a compromise. And you know what else they do? And this is a big thing is so like a cacti, that's all stem material you see in there. And that's not just one plant. To make a full plant quickly without waiting for a plant to grow, they stick multiple cuttings in one pot. So
that's true.
What you're really seeing is not one big lush plant. It could be most likely it's 4 to 5 cuttings in there. So when you do transplant, the best thing to do is to divide it, because as you know, if you have all these plants growing together and competing, they're going to suffer. It's doable. I'm not saying you have to divide it, but if you want more bang for your buck, you can divide it. You'd get smaller, quote, plants from your big plant, but that's how they do it, is they take this peat moss, they take cuttings, they stick them in the peat moss. It works as a rooting like soil, and then it works as a soil to market. And so you have these lush plants right away. And then as they grow, of course, they're going to compete. So you may have sections, quote, sections of your plant dying off, which is actually individual plants dying off as they're competing. So
now I would love to talk a little bit. Maybe we should talk about blooming them first, but then I think it'd be really fun to talk about propagating them, because if there's ever a plant that's meant to be propagated, that's one of them.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and talk about getting them to bloom, because it's not as straightforward as just here's your plant.
Right. Now, it's in a sense similar to the poinsettia. They do like a period of, I'm going to say in quotes, uninterrupted darkness for a period of several weeks in order to bloom. However, it's uninterrupted in quotes because the reality is if you turn the light on in the room, it's not going to just prevent them from blooming. But the same thing around, 4 to 6 weeks of longer nights will initiate blooming. However, cooler temperatures will also initiate blooming. So if they go down to like 55 to 60 degrees in the fall, outdoors, if you're growing them outdoors for the summer, you'll also initiate flowers.
Yeah, it's one where it's almost 2 or 1 or the other.
Right.
And I have people will say, I can't get my Christmas cactus to bloom at all. It's inside. And I would say, well, is it, next to your coffee table and you don't go to bed until like 11 and lights are on? Do you run your heater and the heater's running, 75 and you never let your house go down? So you may not have blooming inside because you're running lights too long, the heater too long. And then I'll have people who are like, well, my plant's outside and it's still not blooming. And then you go, well, is there a porch light right by there?
But I have mine right outside of my growing area, which has a big, 4x6 window. It has LEDs blasting all the time until 11 at night. And that plant gets light until 11 at night and it still sets buds. Now, of course, the reason is because it's outdoors and it's cool.
Exactly. So it's almost like it doesn't need both and you just need sort of one or the other.
Right. Now, if it gets both, will it bloom better? I don't know.
I don't know. I've always had mine inside where I've controlled the lights and I don't run the heater. So I've had sort of both. And it's funny because Christmas cactus is the one where I will have people send me, this is 100-year-old Christmas cactus.
Right.
And I don't get that for many other plants. So it's capable of living a very long time. But I would just say, keep in mind, if one's not blooming for you, keep an eye about the temperature and keep an eye at the light. It doesn't need to necessarily be both from experience, but it has to be one or the other. And
now, here's a little caveat about temperature, though. They can actually, depending on where you grow them around your house, you can actually grow them outside year round. However, I've had experience where the flowers dropped when it got too cold. But if you grow them outdoors, and let's say you keep them outdoors in the upper 40s, and you have a yellow or a salmon orange variety, when they are too cold, not cold enough to kill them, but just below 50 degrees, it intensifies the colors in the pink department. So your orange and yellow ones may not bloom orange and yellow, they'll bloom more pinkish.
Interesting.
And,
Okay.
and I've had that experience where I'd buy these and I'd keep them out till it got coldish, and they bloomed, but they did not bloom only with the lighter colors. With red, it'll actually make it nicer, and with pink, of course. But it does sort of bring out the pink, and you lose your salmon and the yellow ones, which are hard to get to begin with, or the white ones.
Yeah, those are.
They get pinkish.
Well, speaking of color changes, I was going to say one of the most common questions I get is, I get two questions: is why is it turning red, and why is it shriveling? And
The plant or the flowers?
the plant.
Uh-huh.
And usually red is because it's sun stressed. So if you're growing them outside in the summer, keep in mind that they can be growing outside year round, but usually they're up against a house to be protected from the cold. But
Right.
if they're getting that summer sun, they're adapted to tropical conditions, meaning they're growing in the canopies where they are getting some shade coverage. They do not want full sun. And succulents will turn red in stress. So if your plant is turning red, it's too much sun.
Right. And they are really, like you say, they're not bright sun plants, which is sort of nice because, it's like plants that can tolerate the shade. That's where we want to be, so we can keep it in an area where we want to hang out.
Yeah. And shriveling is either too low or too much water, because overwatering mimics underwatering. And most people overwater their plants. So I'm going to say is if the stems are shriveling, you're probably overwatering it, and just back off the watering. Even though they do like water, they need a lot of aeration around their roots.
And this is something, it might be a little esoteric, but when you see a plant that's shriveling from overwater, it doesn't look quite the same as a plant that's shriveling because it's dry. And of course, when a plant's shriveling and it's dry and you water it, it usually perks up within a few hours.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, the way to tell if you've got dead roots or dry roots is, does it perk up within a few hours?
Yeah. You have nothing to lose at that point, so you might as well water it. It's either damage is done or it's going to help it and survive. But you wanted to talk about propagating it.
And while we're on the topic, so you've killed all your roots. What are you going to do? This is when I say don't throw out, because you can get from one little segment of the stem, you can get a whole new plant. They root so easily that in a humid area, if you have them growing outdoors in the summer, you'll even see little roots starting to grow off some of the joints. So when I go visit my friends on the East Coast, to remember them by, I always, whenever they have a Christmas cactus that I'm visiting them, I'll always take like 2 pieces and make a plant out of it. Oh. And I had a cousin who lived in Vermont, and they had a nice one there. And he passed this year. But I took about 3 years ago, I took 2 little pieces, and what happens is they double every year. So one segment gives 2, gives 4. So after about 4 or 5 years, you have a nice big plant, and it's just finished blooming. And every time I see that plant, I think of my cousin. Aww. So it's really nice if you have friends with them that you don't see too often. Ask them to give you just 1 or 2 segments, and you can get a plant that will always remind you of your friend.
Aw. I've done it before, and I put everything in perlite, but of course the nurseries put them in straight peat. They're not too finicky, but I always think more aeration is better. So perlite is sort of the better way to go.
Well, what I actually do is, because most of the time they're going to root very quickly, I just stick them in whatever soil that I want to grow them in. I don't even have an intermediate soil for those.
Yeah, they really aren't that finicky.
Yeah, and I have a specific mix. I'll buy just a good quality garden potting soil in one of this garden centers, and I'll doctor it up for individual plants. So basically, I just use a very well draining version of, I don't know, whatever brand you like, and I'll add perlite to it. I'll add some vermiculite, some charcoal, just to open it up. Yeah. And I'll just stick the cuttings in. You can let them dry out a day or so if you want. You don't even have to, and they'll sprout very quickly, especially in the summer.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not a very difficult plant. It's just getting the flowering cued in. But I think the flowering becomes an issue with people just keeping it in their house with light and not dropping the
Yeah.
temperature. If you do one or the other, and then overwatering is probably the biggest issue I see.
Right.
So
And they really do enjoy being outdoors in the summer. I mean,
yeah, they do.
I think
They
that's
do.
where you should put them.
I think so too. Okay, so let's move on to, I'm going to call it Amaryllis, but to be honest, is it truly the Amaryllis genus?
No.
No. What are we growing?
We are calling it Amaryllis because that was the old name. It's actually, again, a harder to pronounce name, Hippeastrum.
Yeah. That's true.
I had an uncle. He was a hippie, but not a Hippeastrum.
So we know, it is the Amaryllidaceae family, and we know Amaryllis belladonna, but those aren't the ones you grow for Christmas and the holidays. It's Hippeastrums, and the interesting thing is they don't, in their natural setting, don't bloom at Christmas time.
No. They're more spring bloomers.
I would say even late summer too.
Late spring, early summer.
I guess it depends on the
summer.
species, right? Spring through summer bloomers.
Well, when we grow them, I grow them in the garden, and I get them blooming in late spring.
Okay. I'm trying to think of one. I have some in the ground, but I barely do anything with them. And I'm like, oh, you're blooming. Oh, you didn't die. How nice of you.
I was in Paris once, actually south of France, bicycling. And south of France is not much not much warmer than the East Coast. And I passed by this lady's house, and this is May. Actually early June, and she had a bed. It must have been like hundreds of Hippeastrums in flower. And I started, I had a nice little French conversation with her. But it's amazing if you can grow them outdoors, they spread and they become these beautiful beds of flowers. So I'll say late May, early June for some of them.
You think you had a nice conversation. That lady to this day is still like, this American guy, God, you would not believe what the hell he was saying.
He said, bonjour, comment ça va?
No, she's like, I can't believe what he said.
He asked me if I was a refrigerator.
Exactly. Anyways, okay, so say you get one as a gift or you buy one blooming.
Yes.
Bring it inside, enjoy the blooms, and then what?
Well, this is a great plant for treating either as a house plant or as a garden plant in our zone, and zone 7 being warmer. What I would do is, enjoy the flowers. Then you will start to see the leaves sprout out. They may spread out with the flower, sometimes a little before and sometimes afterwards, sort of as the flower's dying. But the leaves are these big, long, strap-shaped leaves that do like actually a lot of light.
Yes.
And so they're really not a great house plant per se. So what do you do with them afterwards? Keep them here. You don't want to put them out immediately because it's too cold for them. And now they're sort of semi-dormant outdoors. But keep it in a pretty bright window, and keep them going until it's warm enough to put them outdoors. And then you can keep them in pots, feed them very well, give them good lighting because they do take a lot of food during the summer, or put them in the ground.
Yeah, and the ground thing, it's in their natural bloom time is late spring and summer. So summer irrigation, standard irrigation is fine, and you don't want to bury them all the way.
No,
I mean, I have, not going to lie, and they're okay, but in a pot, you do sort of want their quote necks exposed. But when you get a gift one, don't, let the flower die off naturally, let the leaves come off, let the leaves die naturally, because all those photosynthates, all of it from photosynthesizing, all that energy is going into the bulb. That's the point of the bulb, is that storage and energy for next year. But do plant it, in I think they do a little okay in afternoon shade. So morning sun is probably ideal for a really hot climate.
Or all day dappled sun really works well.
All day dappled shade. And
shade,
and it may even take more than a year for it to get it back onto its. So you may not get a bloom. So say you get one as a gift in flower. You let it go, do its leaf thing, go to dormant. It may take a year or two to get it back on its normal cycle because it sort of took
Right.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is they're being forced
Yes.
to bloom. So
Yeah.
the blooms that you're getting are not last spring's bloom, they're next spring's bloom. So it will skip this spring because you've already enjoyed those flowers. So it's going to be about a year and a half to bloom, but that's really, it is in season. It's just you've already had your season.
Yeah.
It's time for the next one.
Yeah, exactly. So in a pot, you may notice it more than if you plant it in the ground and forget about it. And then it's a happy surprise when it comes up. Now, there are as of a few years ago on the market, there are these wax dipped amaryllis, which I just think is torture.
I just have one word for that, oi.
If you've ever had wax hair removal, you know that.
Yes, so
some people may.
So after it bloom with no water, with no added water because it can't bloom. It can't give it any more water.
You can't give it any more water. So the idea apparently is, okay, here you have this bulb. It has everything it needs in it. It has all the nutrients. It has all the energy, and it has all the water it needs to bloom. Just give it some warmth to emerge it out of its dormancy, and we'll dip it in wax to make it look pretty, and you don't need to pot it. And you can't because there's no roots to it.
Right, because they cut them all off.
Because we cut them all off. And without fail, as soon as I mention to people, oh yeah, you have to throw those away, someone will say, oh no, I had one and it bloomed the following year. Well, I think it depends on did they get all the roots removed? Did they do or somehow
did they de-wax it?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you want to try to save it, do as the same before. Let it flower, let the leaves come out, try to peel the wax off, and then put it in some soil. And if they haven't removed completely enough of the bottom, there may be some roots that come out.
Right. Right.
So,
my hope is that they cut the roots off, but they leave the bottom plate where all the roots come out of.
Yeah.
Alone.
And I don't know during the manufacturing or during the process if they're going to be that careful. So It's not a guarantee it's going to grow. There is a chance.
Now, of course, what you can do, I thought about this. If you put it in, let's just say, I don't know, water of about, they put it in liquid wax. Or they actually put it in warm wax and molded it around it. I don't know which. But I'm wondering if you could put it in, let's say, 110-degree water to soften the wax, and then it would come off easier. Or you could just take a strip and attach it to the wax and rip it off, and the amaryllis will go, ah!
Well, I think because it's a bulb, it has those layers.
Yes, you're not going to go. I'm just making a bad joke about being waxed. Not that I've been waxed.
Yeah.
But,
I have been, and it's not pleasant. So let me just tell you, that's why I think it's torture, because I'm like, if anyone's ever had hot wax. But some people do enjoy that. I'm not not.
Hey, I have a question. Are amaryllis from Brazil by any chance?
Don't get me started. They're technically from, where are they from? They're the true, I think the true amaryllis, the Amaryllis belladonna, is from South Africa because we have it planted in the South African bed. But I think hippeastrums are from South America. So
yeah, I think they are South American. So maybe the
they could be a
Brazilian does get a Brazilian
wax.
Anyway, on that happy note,
it's so smooth. Okay.
But I think the thing to do with them is, I would say, here's my recommendation. If you really like hippeastrums, get one or two every year, and after it blooms, just keep it going. I don't actually let them go dormant after they bloom. That's, to me, the growing time. So I just keep those leaves, and then when it goes outdoors, it's just going to sprout newer leaves. Put it in the garden. Find a spot where it gets that nice dappled sun or morning sun, and just add every year a few more of them because they're not cheap.
Yeah,
and eventually you will have a garden like that lady in France, and somebody can come to you who speaks French and comes to you in cruddy English and says, "Lady, those flowers am good," and you can laugh at them.
Good. But I do want to say, hold on, you reminded me of that the ones in the greenhouse don't go dormant. They don't tend to go dormant. I always think it's a good idea for them to go dormant. So I think outside it's better, but it's not to say they have to go dormant.
Oh, mine actually are not dormant. They're not growing now, but they're not dormant.
Yeah.
I will also add, if you're growing them in zone 7B, which goes down to 5 degrees, they'll survive. They won't survive every year, but you have to plant them deeper because your ground will freeze the top few inches. Unless it's a super protected spot. And zone 8, for instance, you want to plant them deeper because I think they'll just do better overall. I mean, sure, the growing point is actually located underground in any case. But I just think they'll be better off if you get them a little deeper or mulch them heavily.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any experience with that cold. So I just know winter, wet, they can rot like anything. So let's move on to something similar. It's another bulb. Let's move on to paperwhites.
Ah, paperwhites.
Yes, because we all see them being sold at the nurseries, and I'm sure we've all seen the pictures of where they're in glass jars with the pebbles and blooming.
Oh, yes.
Right? It's pretty, and it's easy, right? You look like you're a
It's-
genius when you do it, but it's really
It is
easy.
foolproof.
Yeah, so what is it, like 4 to 6 weeks before they bloom, you could buy the bulbs, put them in pretty much anything, and as long as the bottoms where the roots are going to come out have water and they have light, they will grow and they will flower and they're fragrant.
I don't like the smell, by the way. I
What?
think they smell sort of cruddy.
Really?
Yeah, there are certain, I mean, there are variety. I think that daffodils in general don't smell good, but that's me.
Yeah, but a lot of daffodils, if I recall, can't remember smelling. No, I guess they do. But like paperwhites have, like the white paperwhites, or have that sort of that white flower fragrance. Yeah.
I guess it smells different to different people.
Okay. All right. I won't knock you. Okay. So say you got some paperwhites, you bloomed them inside. What do you do, Bruce?
Well, I have two choices. One of them, since they're white, boring flowers, I give them to friends. But
after
the reality is that,
after they're done blooming?
I'm sorry?
After they're done blooming, you give them to friends?
After they're done blooming, I said, do you want some paperwhite bulbs?
okay.
And they all say no.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can put them in the garden and they will bloom. In fact, I have some from this house I purchased. They had hundreds of them, of which I ripped out hundreds. I have a few left here and there, and they're blooming right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they bloom so early. I mean, they bloom this time of year in the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because what they are, paperwhites are, and there's three varieties more or less. There's the yellow, there's the white with white, there's the white with the yellow cup, and my favorite is the yellow with the orange cup, which is the French name of Grand Soleil d'Or, which means big sun of gold.
Ooh.
And they're very pretty. They're a little later blooming than the white ones, but they can grow outdoors and they will bloom now outdoors in your garden. They're all varieties Narcissus tazetta, which is, you can buy those varieties of that in your, at your bulb catalogs. But there are some specific varieties which will bloom in October. I had one that was blooming about a month ago. So it's a really great, if you love daffodils but want them in the fall, look for the various tazetta. Tazetta varieties. They're hard to get anything other than the ones you find in like the major catalogs, but they're hard to get ones to bloom, a lot of them in the fall. Yeah.
So a lot of people think, oh, well, once you get a paperwhite to bloom inside, it's done, throw it away. I mean, that's not necessarily true.
No, as long as you put them outdoors in your garden, they'll rebloom. I don't think they would rebloom if you put them in pots.
Well, I think it's what it is you're growing them in water. And so they're blooming with the previous year's photosynthesis and energy in the bulb, and they're not taking anything up for the previous year. So they're not getting any nutrients. So they're depleting everything. So you put them in the ground, it's probably going to take a year or two for them to rebuild that up if they survive.
Which is very common in bulbs.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not to say they can't. It's just to say they probably won't bloom the following year, and you have to put them in the ground and give them what they need to oomph themselves back up.
Right. Now, I will say, of the hundreds that I had in the garden, they were like, for some reason, the people who I bought the house from, they had this whole rows of cinder blocks, and they threw them all at cinder blocks.
Oh, wow.
So these were like 20 bulbs in a 4x4 inch by 3-inch hole in the cinder block. So they weren't blooming. But I think if you spread them and put them in your garden, you will get bloom.
Yeah. And then they do get crowded. I mean, because I have clusters and clusters of them. And then sometimes they are just so crowded, individual bulbs aren't able to grow, and then they won't flower.
Right.
So if you have flowering issues, that's the problem. You need to dig them up, probably divide them. Some of them get old and they'll just die and not bloom. And so there's always issues of why they're not blooming. But yeah.
And that's with all narcissus. They'll tell you plant them 5 inches apart, which is fine. But if you take a narcissus, and especially if you got a mixture, plant them like a foot or two apart if you have the space and have patience, and they'll double every year, and then you'll get clumps of all one color. But if you're going to grow your your paperwhites in the garden, give them more space than you'd think that they need, and that way you won't have to divide them for years.
Yeah, I love the way they smell. And they always seem to bloom way earlier than you're expecting. And you're like, oh, this is a pleasant surprise. Because, we're just so trained, daffodils spring, but the paperwhites bloom. And then inside, they're so easy too.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the thing. I will say that, again, I'm thinking I'm back in the old country where it's right now around 25 degrees. There's nothing nicer than having some flowers that you don't have to work for.
Yeah.
That you just buy them, they're blooming, you enjoy them, and you may toss them and you may not.
Yeah.
But it's like December and you have flowers in your house. That's really nice.
It's really nice. Even though some of us don't like the way they smell, it's still very nice.
To each his own,
Yeah. All right, let's move on to a common substitute for a Christmas tree, a potted plant, the Norfolk Island pine.
Yes, love the Norfolk Island pine.
I know.
Do you like them?
I think they're absolutely gorgeous. We have a few of them in pots at work, and there are some in the ground at work. One of them, in fact, we are growing in the shade house, and it's now rooted itself in the ground and is shoved up against the screen up top, and I don't know what to do with it.
That will be a problem for people in years to come. You could make a hole in the screen.
I could, but then the top will just burn.
The problem with Norfolk Island pines, let's just a little bit of a, deviation, but is that they can grow in our climate, but they're marginally hardy and they will tend to burn up. If you have just the right spot for them, if you have something that's taller than them, that's giving them a little bit of protection from the cold, you might get a nicer plant. Or if you live in a super warm area.
Yes.
But generally, they don't look as good as they do in their natural environment where they can grow 200 feet tall.
So they're actually not a pine. They're an Araucaria heterophylla, which is, if you know the monkey puzzle tree, they're related to that. It's an Araucaria. So it's not a pine. And they are from the Norfolk Island.
Which is between New Caledonia and Australia, I think.
I think so. So they actually prefer a lot of humidity. And humidity is the issue of when people get them to grow them as a houseplant, they are not happy.
Right.
And also I think the light inside is too low. So I think
when you think of it, a tree that's growing 200 feet tall, it can take full sun, depending on the type of sun, but it can take full sun.
Yeah. So the ones at work, two of them, one of them is in the screen house, so it gets shade, and that's the one rooted into the ground. Another one we have is growing between the two greenhouses, but it gets afternoon shade. And the ones in the ground, they're in the ground. They are on the north side of a building, so they don't get the direct afternoon sun. And they get a little filtered sun as, the sun moves towards the west. And they're actually quite happy. So you could say they could handle low summer humidity if they're happy in the ground.
Right.
I guess.
And they're difficult here, I think, for that reason that we're dry and we're hot. So you need to keep them in an area, again, of dappled sunshine. But a lot of those areas of dappled sunshine are under maple trees or liquid amber trees. And so in the winter, they get the full cold exposure, and they don't really like that.
No. So I think it's up against a house with warmth protection and some afternoon sun protection. And inside, so you get one as a gift. I think the same thing across the board with all these is the soil it's going to be in is going to be a heavy peat, and people are going to overwater it. And you're getting it in winter where you're blasting your heater, and that is dry, hot air. Right. And that is usually the kiss of death, is that the too heavy of a soil and the really hot, dry air blowing on it.
And just think if you live in an area where it's super cold outside, where the humidity outside is also 15, 20%, unlike here where it's higher, and you have the heat on, you'll probably fry it if you're not careful.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
with other plants.
It's definitely doable. I've seen it. I'm doing it. It's just as a house plant, it's not ideal. And
No.
you have to
But-
sort of have that sweet spot. And that sweet spot, just beware, it does get to be a tall tree.
Right. But if you love araucarias and you want to investigate other species, there are plenty of species. Well, there are not a lot of species of the plant of that genus, but there are several species that will grow outdoors here and be very happy. And I've seen very nice specimens, 50, 60 feet tall of other araucarias, which I can't name. The monkey puzzle tree is a great tree.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it does well here.
Hurts like a mother.
But yes,
Not
yes,
its cones,
yes.
even its leaves. So at the Winchester Mystery House, there is a giant one on Winchester Boulevard. And when we'd have to pick up the leaf debris, it is spiny. And then when it forms cones, the cones are notorious for being so big that they fall down. But for me, I didn't have that experience. Trust me, when I was picking up probably the spiny foliage, I wanted a giant cone to come falling down on my head.
Just so you could collect workman's compensation.
Well, just so I didn't have to pick up the spiny leaves anymore.
So the ideal plants would be to grow your coconuts, and then in the under the coconuts or around the coconuts have your monkey puzzle tree.
Yeah.
So that way, when the big wind comes, one of them will get you.
Yes, one of them. At least one of them you can make drinks out of.
Right. Whereas the other one, I don't think there's much edible in a Norfolk Island pine
or a Araucaria monkey puzzle
cone.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to a sort of an outlier of the holiday plants that, I really don't go into many stores anymore. I guess but I think it's Safeway. You could see this in certain stores. You may see the ornamental pepper.
Yes.
And it is a true pepper. So it's capsaicum. And go ahead and explain what it looks like.
Well, it's a little plant, usually about, I'm going to say under 12 inches tall. Usually they're around 6 to 8 inches tall, more or less. And it's like a pepper plant, but they're instead of just the 3 or 4 peppers, if you grow them like I do, the big ones, you get lots of little tiny peppers, almost like the Thai chili peppers. They're usually pointing straight up. They're often red. They can be purple. They can be orange, but it is a pepper. And one thing is they're not just edible. They're extremely hot. Mm-hmm. I think they give ghost peppers probably a run for their money.
Well, Bruce, can you tolerate heat when you eat? There's probably some people out
there. I find bell peppers too spicy.
That's what I was going to say.
No, but they are known for being very spicy.
They are known for being spicy.
That means don't touch the fruit. If you, let's just say, prick the fruit with your nail or something and get a little juice on it, don't shut your eyes.
Yeah. So some of them, going through like seed catalogs, you could find the pepper to grow it as, in the summertime, and it's a New Mex, like Twilight, as you may find it. And so there's New Mex Christmas. And then it's a pepper plant that the fruit changes color as it develops on the plant, which is
like any pepper.
Yeah, which is very common. But somewhere along the lines, they went, hey, this looks like Christmas lights. Let's start producing it as a Christmas plant. So they start growing it and getting it to flower and getting it to fruit, and probably give it a little growth hormone regulator so it stays small and produces flowers and fruits at a very small size, and then they market it.
And here I thought it was genetic.
It is a smaller plant, but I'm sure they use I think so many of these plants are
I forget about that.
Yeah, I mean, we use it at work, so I know it's probably very common on the market to keep them bushy and to get them to flower at a small size. And then it looks like little, like old-fashioned, well, I say old-fashioned, but the incandescent lights, but in arrays of different colors. And it is edible, but it's spicy, but it is a perennial. So if you want to grow it once you're done with it in the holidays,
it needs to go outside.
But I would still wait until the frost, because if you have peppers, and you're trying to keep them over winter, you need to either cover them heavily, move them inside. So this one I would still transplant into a better soil, because it's going to be in that heavy peat. Keep it inside, a bright light. And then in spring, move it outside the first time temperatures at night start warming up above 50. That's what I would do.
Because peppers like it warm.
They like it warm. So I would not move this right outside, but I would get it into a new soil and try to keep it in as much light inside as possible.
And I would venture to say that they transplant pretty easily.
They do. Oh yeah, they do. So, but I'm assuming, I mean, I remember a few years ago that, I don't know if it's just me, but it just seems like there's a lot less poinsettias out there.
I think people got bored with them.
Maybe so. I think I remember several years ago where they came in like every single color and sparkle. And,
Right.
20 years ago, I remember working at a nursery and we just got so many. And it was like, gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. Back in the day, this is probably the late 70s. There was the red one, the pink one, and I think there was the white one.
Yeah,
I think it was basically those three. There might have been a marbled one by then.
Yeah. And then it got to be where I did see a purple one today.
Yeah.
I did see the sparkle, and there was a peach one I fell for last year. That's why I bought it. So yeah, but it's just not as many. And that's why I'm like, are there even the pepper plants even for sale? Or
I haven't seen them actually.
Yeah.
And I will say that one of the problems with poinsettia is that you really aren't seeing the really groovy new colors. You go like to the big box stores and they have red ones, and they're not healthy, of course.
No,
because
they're almost
they came
dying
in
already.
probably, in that terrible mix, and they're at the big box stores.
Yeah.
But you don't really see the really great colors that you do when you go to the botanical gardens. Maybe they're harder to grow. Maybe they're more expensive. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Or maybe people, when they're buying them as gifts, want that true red one or for their house. Yeah. They're like, I want it.
Or they don't know, or the public, sometimes just doesn't know better because they're not exposed to it. Mm-hmm. And so they have no idea that you could get purple ones and marbled yellow and red ones.
Or
and
they're like, what
ones.
Kind of color is purple for Christmas?
Well, yeah, but give it to your folks who don't celebrate Christmas.
Yes,
this is what they say. That's not what I want to say. That's what you get.
Is it a Hanukkah? I mean, I don't celebrate Christmas as a Christian holiday, but it's still the whole Santa Claus thing, red. So maybe that's the whole thing. I don't know. Yeah. Who knows? Okay, we're gonna end it with one that is interesting, and it's mistletoe.
Mistletoe.
Yeah. And speaking of something you don't see for sale anymore, I never see mistletoe for sale anymore.
You see little sprigs of it, right?
Do you still see that? I don't know.
I've seen it here and there. I certainly wouldn't want a mistletoe to be growing in my trees.
Well, I was going to say, I see it more when I look outside or on campus because I have a few walnut trees with it. And then on campus, there's trees. Because this time of year, it's very noticeable because it stays evergreen, where your deciduous trees, if they're infected with it, their leaves fall off. And you're like, wait a minute, why is that still green? Oh, it's got mistletoe. Yeah.
So what about mistletoe?
So it is considered a hemiparasite. So parasites are plants that grow on another plant, and they will inject their, quote, roots, which are these structures called haustorium, so they're not really roots, into the vascular system of their host plant, and they will pull out the photosynthates, the nutrients, and the water, and in detriment to the host plant. So that's why they are a parasite. Now, a hemiparasite, like mistletoe, you notice it's green. It could photosynthesize. It still makes its own photosynthates, its energy, but it relies on the host plant to get its nutrients and water. So it is still acting as a detriment to the host plant. And over time, if it gets more and more and more, of course, it's going to harm the plant. But a plant could live, a true large tree could live a long, 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 long time with a little bit of mistletoe on it. So how it spreads is the fruit is this white berry, white fruit, and birds are going to pick it up, eat it, and they'll poop out a seed, and the seed will land on the side of a tree trunk, start growing, and those little haustorium, the roots will go into the plant. So that is why you can't just cut mistletoe off and go, done, end of story. The roots, quote, roots are in there, and it'll just come right back.
Well, how far down do you have to cut from the mistletoe if you want to get rid of it?
Oh,
or can you?
Oh, you can't. You'd have to cut the limb off. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, because it's by the time it is vegetative and you see it, it is pretty far down into the limb. So you'd have to remove that whole entire limb.
So if it's a big limb, you have to go way down to the base, huh?
Yeah. Or cut maybe, I really don't know. I mean, I would cut like a foot past where it's
Okay,
at.
because I've done that and did not see mistletoe.
Yes.
For
Oh,
a
yeah.
while.
I wouldn't say the whole, I
I
shouldn't say you remove the whole limb. I would say it depends on where it's at, but you have to cut sections of the limb out. Yes, correct. Yes. But I was like, well, why is it a holiday plant?
Yeah, why is it a holiday plant?
So apparently the Romans thought it was a sign for like love and joy, and that they hung it on their doors. And I assume then people like said goodbye kisses under the door frames. And then in Victorian times, apparently the service staff really got into it. But fun fact, during the pagan, the Celtic, and the ancient Greeks, dude, they all had their head, like, they had really bad, like, potty humor. I guess not potty humor, but like teenage boy humor. Every single one of those, apparently the pagans, the Celtics, and the ancient Greeks all said and all thought the berries, the white berries, looked like semen. And therefore that is what they thought it was. And I'm like, really?
And why does that make them want to hang it on their?
I don't think they did. I don't think they hung it, but that was what they thought. And I'm like, really? I'm trying to think of like, there's got to be like white sprigs of roses. I mean, other flowers, like, I don't know, like some viburnums with something, but no, mistletoe. Okay. Whatever, guys.
Well, you know what would happen? Now this is when the medieval times.
Even before, the pagans.
So the Celtic, the man would go to the forest and cut the mistletoe and hang it on the door. And the woman would say, that mistletoe is poorly hung. And then he move it around. He says, now it's well hung. And that is the story of mistletoe.
Bruce, did you practice that one? That was good.
That was good. I hope this doesn't put us off the air.
I don't think so. That was good. Yeah. But I was just like reading this. I'm like, I'm like, I could think the pagans because God knows what they were up to. And I'm like, but really? Okay, the Celts? Okay, really? Now more? And then it came the Romans who were like, no, it means love. And I'm like, okay.
All right. So that makes sense. You kiss under the mistletoe.
Yeah. But it is bizarre that you take this. And I could see possibly where it started because you have not evergreen trees, but you have these trees with foliage. And then in the winter, they drop their leaves. And you look up and you go, well, wait a minute. What is that growing out of the tree? That's got to be something unusual and strange. So I could definitely see where it was noticed and probably thought of as a little bit more uncommon than your standard plant. So I could see that for sure. I could see that. It is incredibly I don't know, incredibly toxic. I think it's sort of like the poinsettia. You don't want to eat it. All parts are poisonous. Right. Digestive, upset stomach. So I think it's funny.
a lot of houseplants we grow are poisonous to some degree.
To some degree.
Be careful.
Yeah, just be careful. But I thought that was interesting. So if people are still into hanging mistletoe, I'm sure there's books written on the lore of mistletoe and why, but I really didn't know. So I just Googled it real quick, but I'm like, oh, of course it comes back to semen and sperm. Doesn't it always come back to that? Yeah. But I think we covered a good amount. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think we covered the big ones. And each one of these probably, especially poinsettias, I think have its own story that you could probably do. Books are probably written on that as well.
Right.
That, just economically, I'm sure you could go into just economics wise how important it is as a crop. But I think this is what turned me off on going to like being a horticulturalist with crops, because it's like you could become a poinsettia grower. And I went, oh my God, I think I would. No offense to poinsettia growers out there, but I need more variety.
Well, and it's this constant It's like when
Constants.
we grow in the conservatory, there's new things coming in. We
Mhm.
try things. We have
Yeah.
things that give us trouble. We learn. With
Uh-huh.
the poinsettia business, it's you get your cuttings, you start your
my God.
cuttings, you make your cuttings, you make your pinches, you repinch, you cover them at night and they have to
You
cover
treat
them at
them for
night
white.
at
You
nurseries.
spray
And
them to
it's
treat
just
for
this,
white flies.
it's like
Yeah, it's the same old, same old. I mean, you were
every year.
on every year. And I'm sure there's excitement just like there is with anything, but it's not in the plants. It's probably in everything else. So no, it's not. It's not for me.
No, and that's
Not for
okay.
me,
It's
and
for
that's
some
okay.
people.
It's
And
some
that's
for
probably
people.
why there were 3 producers of poinsettias in the country.
And you
if
know
that
what? That's
many.
probably why they make more money than me. So
Yeah, but you enjoy your plants.
they make more money than me.
Maybe they like it too. Maybe to a poinsettia
true.
grower, it is the be all and end all of their existence. They say, wow,
Yeah.
a red one with a white picotee on it. You know, says, I got a white one with a red picotee on it.
I mean-
Maybe we should cross them.
I mean, hey, I stopped in my tracks when I saw the peach one. So,
I did too.
yeah. So no matter what, they're doing a good job. But that is it. So I would say if you like this podcast, rate and review it on Spotify and Instagram. You could give us a 5-star rating and leave a little note saying how much you enjoyed the podcast. It just helps us move up into the charts and allows more people to see us. And if you have a question or a comment or a suggestion, you could go ahead and email me at marlenetheplantlady@gmail.com. Follow me, which is also our podcast Instagram too. So I'm not leaving Bruce out. It's Marlene the Plant Lady on Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, that's about it. Until next time, everyone, happy gardening.
And we'll see you next time.